Hello guys and welcome back to another video. So with this video I'm going to go over sort of everything which I've done which I can pinpoint and say helped me get into the video game industry whilst still at university. Now there are a few caveats to this, like obviously a lot of the stuff which I did I wouldn't have been able to do, I wouldn't have the tools or the motivation to be able to do without being at university, and that's going to be a key part of it. And also I got into the industry about 3 months ago, so right at the tail end of my degree. But still, I was one of the first people. I think I might have been the first person in my year to get a job in the games industry. So like, it's still a big deal. But yeah, it's not like I did it in like first year. Like it was definitely final year. I know a few like in different years, other people have gotten jobs in like second year and whatever, like a few years ago, and that sort of thing. But yeah, anyway, so I'm going to go over some of the key elements of what I think helped me get there, and hopefully you can relate to that. But yeah, just a bit about myself. Um, I knew that I was going to be a game designer from a very young age, and one of the key reasons for that is actually something called Halo Reach Forge mode. So if I go like this, I've got a video up just to show you what Halo Reach Forge mode is. So basically, it's like it's a tool which allows you to create levels basically using I don't it's not using the exact engine, that is using like a subset like toolkit engine where it's just probably the level design tools in Halo Reach to be able to create levels. And from a very early age, from like maybe 11 when this came out, or 10, I would create levels for my friends to play, and we'd just have a blast playing multiplayer maps, which I would make, and we prefer to play it over online maps, which is ridiculous to think, honestly, that people would do that. And the other sort of moment when I knew that I was going to be a game designer was when I watched Indie Game the movie. Immediately gravitated towards Edmund, and it was just a crazy roller coaster from there. To be honest, if you haven't watched Indie Game the movie, I highly recommend. But that's what made me want to be a game designer, and made me realize that I wanted to be a game designer, because it's like a chicken and the egg situation. There were elements which I can look back on and be like, oh, this happened before that, but like why? What was the motivation? But yeah, anyway, so moving on to what I did whilst at uni to help me get a degree. Now, this is probably the most important part of the video for people who are actually interested in sort of taking some advice from what I did. So, one of the key things I did was that, especially because I was on a game design degree, which to be fair did focus quite heavily on art and programming as well, blueprinting in Unreal anyway, is I tried to make every single module relevant to the job I wanted to do in industry. A lot of people tend to just focus on what the assignment says and be like, okay, right, let's just bash out this assignment, do what it says, and just be done. When really there's loads and loads of wiggle room to be able to fit it to something which you actually want to do in industry. So, for example, one of the first, it's actually a cascading effect on a lot of things that end up happening in my life. But if we go back here, one of the first modules I did was a concept development module, where we had to make a board game. That was just it. And so it wasn't difficult for me to really relate this to a game design degree, because that board games are the purest form of game design. All the mechanics, all the variables, they're all on the surface. They're all in the rule book. And so it's super easy to do. But yeah, I made Blockers a stacking game. Did the design and art all by myself. I mean, the art really isn't much, but like it's got good graphic design. But yeah, I made it, and then like near the end of development and near the end of the module, my teacher, Dr. Darryl Marples, was saying to me, "Why don't you put this on Kickstarter?" And so literally I did. I put it on Kickstarter. I sent it out to reviewers. I did all this. Like, it cost a bit of money, but you got your student loan, and like unless you're trying to spend it all, you're not going to spend it all. And so I put it into making this board game, and like ran a crowdfunding campaign, which was, it was decently successful. It was enough to make the game, You know, only 58 backers, 2,742. But what this says to an employer is like, yo, this person is like motivated to make games, which is what a lot of portfolios just completely miss. Like, they've got like some projects in there and stuff like that, but it's always projects which they has been forced upon them. You know, like there is no showing of outside motivation beyond what was asked of them, which is incredibly important in the video game industry when it comes to problem solving. A lot of companies in the industry look at it for to like evaluate willingness to crunch, which is obviously quite toxic and obviously not something which is welcome really in the industry. But it's there and it does help you get a job, so that's a thing as well to consider. That's obviously something for you to decide whether you want to represent yourself as that or not. But it does help. So there's that, and the reason why I said it was a cascading effect before is because this didn't stop here with blockers. Like, if you might be aware of my other games, but I've also made a game called Langskip and also a game called Food Time Battle in Space as well, all whilst at uni. Now, what I did with Food Time Battle in Space and Langskip is I took a year out of uni, like because blockers came out during my second year of uni, and then I had the opportunity to take a unique type of placement, which is unique to Huddersfield and probably a few other universities. It's not every university has it. Called EPY, which is an enterprise placement. Yes, rather going on a placement in industry, which is incredibly difficult to get. Like, it wasn't really a choice. It was more so like, okay, this is the type of placement I'm going to do. But I'm glad I did it. But yeah, so I picked to do EPY, which basically allows you to run your own business for a year. You have a bunch of support. You have a bit of support financially, but you have the majority of support from mentors and mentorship and tutors, which are specifically hired for EPY. And I used Food Time Battle in Space and Langskip I used that year to create Food Time Battle in Space and Langskip within a year, within one academic year, because I'm like, okay, this is the moment to really boost my portfolio and really show that I can make games without being told what to do. This was not part of an assignment, I just did it, which is so vital to getting a job. Like, literally, any job interview I've had, any feedback I've had from an application, it's all like, your portfolio is impressive. Like, your age, which my age is currently 23, but when I was applying for jobs at 22, and the amount of games you produced, like, they do not align. They do not, like, they're not, it's not common for those two numbers to align. So, incredibly important. And the key thing is that it's a lot of work, but if you love making games, then that's it, you know? Like, why not do something you love? Something else which really helps as well, like, this is completely unrelated to uni, is game jams. So, if you don't know about itch.io run game jams constantly, and you can go onto game jams, sign up for any game jam you want, really. I did this one solo. It's called Lonely Planets, which is essentially kind of like a very narrative, platformy driven game, where I found this unique planetary gravity system, which is, well, unique in that I haven't seen it in a game jam game before. And it's very similar and very reminiscent of like Super Mario Galaxy, obviously quite a bit more janky. But I did this just to show that, like, you know, I'm a designer, but I can also prototype. I know my way around Unreal enough to make a game which can be started. You can achieve stuff. There are obstacles in your way from achieving stuff, and the game ends once you've achieved them. Like, I can make a game from start to finish in Unreal by myself, and showing your team working skills is incredibly important, and it's a huge aspect of getting in an industry. But one of the other key elements is showing that you actually have the skill set to be able to handle stuff by yourself. You don't need constant attention to be able to do that. And yeah, one of the best ways to do that is through solo game jams. I've also done collaborative game jams before, and they are also incredibly important. with that. And then finally, making YouTube content is something which I did at university. If you look back, if this is your first time coming to the channel, hello. But if you look back, you'll see that I did 20 video essays on game design on various different games. And this was something that even in second year, when I was applying to different placements, whenever I got any feedback from placement applications to like keep up your video essays on game design, because they are very, very impressive. Like, this is something which, when you apply for jobs at the end of your degree, is going to give you a real boost. And every single interview I've had after applying near the end of my degree, they've always looked at it and gone, "Oh wow, this is really, really cool. I'm going to watch some of these. This is going to be good." And when they say they're going to watch some of these, maybe they're lying. But if they do, then you, in their perception of reality, exist longer than that 20-minute interview. You stick in their mind longer. And just having that footprint on the internet is great for that reason, but also for just organic reach, like part of the, especially nowadays, part of the game design gig is selling yourself and becoming someone where your name means something as well as what you can do. And YouTube is free to put stuff up on, and if you're a game designer, you're almost surely going to be passionate about talking about game design. And so I don't see enough videos about game design and talking about it on YouTube, especially when it relates to actually practically in video games, in the video game industry. So do it, that'd be crazy if you do, and I'd watch it. So yeah. But yeah, moving on to the sort of what I've done near the end of uni specifically to actually, which I think have been significant, like incredibly significant contributions to getting in industry. Number one, my blog. Now, I haven't updated it in almost more than 2 months now. But basically, like, I think it was like the start of April, that's when I got my job. So obviously I've been slacking. Well, it's actually, I think it was like the middle of March, actually, not the start of April. But yeah, so basically I would update this blog every couple of weeks with different types of like devlog posts. And I'm just trying to, I think it's the third one actually, let me go back. Yeah, so it was this one which actually got me the job which I have now. Like a specific blog post I can look to and be like, this is the one that actually got me a job. And it was gifts like this of just showing that you think about your design. Because a lot of a lot of assumptions anyway about game designers, especially junior game designers, is that they basically all they know is how to use an editor. All they know is how to use an engine. Like, they know how to use Unity and they know how to use Unreal. But when they're placing stuff down on the map, there isn't really much going on behind the scenes in terms of what they're thinking. So actually, me showing that, at the start of this level here, this is my game Lethal Deal, which I'll probably talk about in a different video, I thought that the player would be overwhelmed by the number of jump pads. There's one there, one there, one there, one there, one there. So I thought, let's use pillars to block jump pads from view, and some blocks as well. And all of a sudden, there's one jump pad, and then the aim is for players to be able to just move to the left and get on that jump pad. And then also, this is just demonstrating how two jump pads can be linked together to create like a cool boost. But yeah, and then showing how different color points can be helpful as well. But yeah, so using and just talking about like your thought process on it, like that is so incredibly important, like it's really, really important, and a blog is like the best way to do that. But yeah, now the next two things are, well, one thing is very, very obvious, but the other thing, which I'll talk about first, actually, I was going to talk about it second, is something which not everyone is going to be able to do. But if you can, then I highly recommend it, and it'll probably be much easier if you are in formal education, like I was. And that is get yourself a mentor. Make friends with someone who is in the position or in a similar position that you want to be in, because the information they can give you, the sort of camaraderie style, like togetherness vibe esque thing that they can give you is vital. It's so valuable. Around, I think it was January time, I stumbled across my mentor. I knew he existed, but it wasn't until January where I was asking for playtesters for this game, actually, for Lethal Deal. And I was asking for playtesters just to play the game in my university Discord. And he was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then from there, I was like, wow, this 20-minute conversation. In fact, it ended up being an hour when I only slotted 20 minutes for it. What is so valuable. Like, it's so potent. It means so much in such a small space of time and just between two people. And I'm like, this is someone who I want to ask to be my mentor. And then this happens with a lot of people, but I asked him to be my mentor, and then he was the one that got imposter syndrome, which is crazy to think about, like, considering where he's at in his career and stuff like that. I mean, I have imposter syndrome every day on my work, and I think a lot of people do until they get really comfortable with what they do. But yeah, having a mentor is incredibly important, and he ended up being the one to actually offer me the job in the end. But I will go into more detail about that now, about how that process actually went. Finally, it's obvious, but just apply. Go on LinkedIn, make an account, get a bunch of connections to people in your field, and then search for jobs which we'll search for roles which match the role you want to be in the games industry. It's simple as that. Make a CV. I might go into if you want, I can actually go into details about my CV and more details about this portfolio which I have. And I can just talk through it because that might be helpful for you guys. But long story short, CVs don't matter too much, especially when it comes to the games industry. But yeah, just apply and apply and apply. When I started applying, I got a couple of interviews. I got one like straight away from starting to apply, which was good. This was back in probably like December, January when I started applying. I think it was December. But the thing is that you also get a lot of rejections. You get loads and loads of rejections. Probably I had a total of 4 interviews in the span between December and middle of March. And I had about probably 60 to 70 rejections. And they aren't easy to swallow, even when you get to like number 62. They are very difficult, and that's something you're going to prime yourself with, especially when it's a job you really want. Like I applied, without going into too much detail, I applied for companies close by, like Sumo Digital, like Rebellion, and those were companies which I really wanted to get into just because they were so local and they were such a good company from the outside anyway. And yeah, getting those rejections hit hard. But if you don't apply, because people often wait until their portfolio is at the magical level of perfection they're imagining in their head, and it'll never be there. It'll never be there until, because you're missing the key element which you think will make it perfect, and that's like industry standard work. And you can't really get that completely. Like, you can get very incredibly close. Like, I have artist friends which produce incredible work, but without it being shown in the game, or without it being like vetted by like 10 of your other peers around you who are at a same standard or a higher standard than you, then you're not gonna be happy with it completely. So I would say apply. There is the only downside to that is that there are blacklists, but that's not like, so basically blacklisting means that, like, when it comes to this, is like if you apply for something and they reject you, they put you on a blacklist for a certain number of time. Now, this isn't because like, oh, your work was so bad, we hate you, we don't want to see you ever again. It's more so like, it's to stop spamming, essentially. It's to stop people spamming the same application over and over again and flooding the rest of the applications, because there are going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of applications for the role which you want. But again, you know, if you wait, then you'll just not get the job anyway, so you might as well do that. But yeah, so going back to what I was saying earlier when I was talking about mentorship, the reason why I got the job was through applying, it was through doing an interview, because I was talking to my mentor for a couple of months, pretty much every week, and they were umming and ahhing about whether, like in the back of their mind and on the back end, about whether or not to hire me for their game, which they're working on at the moment. They have their own studio and whatnot, and it was the fact that I got a job interview for a different studio, which went incredibly, incredibly well. I think that if the interviewer had the option, they would offer me the job there, but I had to do a design test beforehand. It went incredibly well. I was like, oh my god, like, the wage isn't the best, but it's still pretty good. But I need to talk to my mentor to see what he thinks about this and like what I should do. Got on a call with him, and then within the day, I was offered the job at his company instead. And that wasn't even one I had to interview. I mean, I guess like I did do an interview over the course of all the mentorship meetings. And yeah, but that was the way I got my job. And just to recap, started off with inspiration from Halo and Indie Game the movie, Halo Reach Forge mode in particular, and then it moved on to, that led me to get a place at Huddersfield University in the game design course, and then whilst I was at uni, I made 3 board games, 3 game jam games, including one by myself, and then I also applied so much. I applied so much to a bunch of different jobs. I kept up a blog, which I didn't actually mention, by the way. I've been running now for almost over 2 years. The anniversary when I created this blog is actually nearly up. And then I had a successful interview, but the mentor which I had was like, nope, that's too successful. I want you at my studio instead. And then that's how I got the job in March of this year, whilst I still had a few months left of my degree. But yeah, that video went on quite a bit longer than I was expecting. I was expecting it to be about a 10-minute video, but now it's 23 minutes, so I won't keep you any longer. If you like this type of content, please let me know, and I will make more. I have a bunch of just things to talk about, really, when it comes to the video game industry, video game development, about a bunch of games which I've been working on. I mean, obviously, there are currently a bunch of videos about FKO, Fatal Knockout, the board game which I have made recently and is being taken to UK Games Expo in just like next week. I'll be at UK Games Expo, which is actually a realization which I just had on camera, so there we go. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, hopefully you enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye.